Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother? You all right?
Yeah, it's my. I'm like an excited little school kid. I'm finally got the desk set up, and I've been at it for like 2 hours. So
Nice.
obviously, I'm just making little adjustments as you and I jump on.
I like
Uh,
it when my screens come together. So I have my screens merged, so it's a seamless transition with the mouse from one screen to another. Tim just shot me a picture of his office setup. Sweet office setup. Obviously, your view from the ocean. Absolutely epic.
it sure is. Yeah, sure is. I love it. I love
Doing
it.
COVID right, baby. Doing COVID right.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like COVID doesn't exist here. Obviously, it does, but it kind of doesn't because of the lifestyle we can live. So it's great.
Nice.
Mm.
Well, Tim, before we hit record, one of the things we talked about discussing was what is the difference between alpha and beta traits?
Hmm.
So I think first, what we wanted, in my experience with this, is the first place to start is what does it mean to be alpha? Right. I feel like a lot of people get this mistaken because you think of alpha, the average person thinks of this big burly guy, tattoos, leather, Harley bike, motorcycle, is going around kicking people's teeth in, kind of a jerk. That's the alpha. And that's not necessarily the case, right? That's not the way we're defining alpha characteristics here. The way that we're defining alpha characteristics here is someone who leads, right? Leads their own life, leads the life of their family, and leads their business, right?
Mm.
Somebody who takes charge when taking charge needs to happen. They're also somebody that doesn't have to be in charge all the time, right? They're secure with themselves. So they can sit and listen, right? There's different personality types where it's that quiet guy in the room that just holds space and listens before, but the words that he says are powerful words, the words that everybody's listening to.
Hmm.
So those are the differences. And I think that gets to be clear because a lot of times when guys hear I need to be alpha, they start going into like military mode, right? It's a common thing we see within men's coaching. Everybody starts, trying to train like a Navy SEAL or a Marine or, a special forces guy. And, they get all aggro and they're going to shave their head and go, take a bunch of, steroids, whatever it is. Right.
Which works for some guys, right? Doesn't work for the guys we work with, but it works for some guys.
I think it's a
Not.
catalyst for some guys.
Yeah, I just pulled up here the obviously we have a definition of what it means to be a powerful man that we're always revisiting. But the one we came up with over a year ago has really been a north star for us. Being a powerful man means, which essentially being alpha means, a quiet confidence, a quiet self assurance. You know what you need to do. You know what's best for your pack. You lead by example. You're very comfortable with that, and you have a calming effect. So I think it's a great way to summarize a lot of what you were saying there, especially the quiet confidence and quiet self assurance. I think that's a big alpha characteristic, right? You have nothing to prove, nothing to hide. You don't have to shout about what you're doing. You don't need to buy a flashy car to symbolize your status. You don't rely on things outside of yourself as ways to really prove anything. And I love, saying you know what you need to do. By default, that means you're in tune with your purpose, right? And you know what's best for your pack. What that really means is from a family perspective, maybe your business, maybe your team. It's not from a domineering perspective, like, hey, my way is the way. But like you said, you're comfortable leading in those situations. Hence, you lead by example. And one of the bits I really love is you have a calming effect. You have a calming effect on those around you. That's a real alpha trait. Someone who's grounded in who they are and where they're going and doesn't need to shout about it, is just there. Kind of like that steady lighthouse that just, lighthouse versus tugboat, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And then when we talk about beta, so what I want to turn this conversation to, Tim, because I think it's going to be most helpful for the guys listening, is let's just stay mostly in the area of relationships, right? So,
Mhm.
relationship with your wife as you're listening to this, guys,
Okay.
and how that goes. So the beta is going to be pretty much the opposite, right? The omega is really the opposite, but the beta is going to be mostly the opposite of the alpha. So a beta is kind of the guy that, goes, okay, whatever. I'm going to go along with it. What? Oh, all right. I'll take out the trash. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Okay, honey. And goes with it. And it's a pushover, essentially. Now, this has been defined. There's been a great book. I really like the book for a lot of guys, No More Mr. Nice Guy, because I think it talks about this beta trap, so to speak, that a lot of guys fall into. They fall into being a nice guy. I did, right? In my marriage. Outside the marriage, not a problem. Being alpha everywhere else with my companies, with sports. But in there, I thought, okay, the only way to make my wife happy is to be a good husband and do more around the house and cook and clean. Well, I didn't cook really, but clean and do things like that and agree. Oh, you want to go to Mexican food tonight? I was really hoping we go to Japanese for sushi, but okay, fine. We'll go to Mexican because that'll make you happy. Right. And if that makes you happy, my life's easier, etc. Right. Just easier that way. Those are all beta traits. Right. And when you're the beta, guys, guess what? Your wife gets to be the alpha. And guess how sexy that is? It's not. It's not sexy at all for her. She may claim or act, she may act as if she wants that role, but she doesn't. Right? It doesn't last very long. It didn't for me. I kept on trying more and more and more and doing more and giving in more. And okay, yeah, I won't go out and play beach volleyball with my friends. I'll stay in and go hiking with you and your friends or whatever it may have been, which just led to more distrust and I think more apathy in my marriage early on. And I think for a lot of guys, Tim, or at least for me, is you feel like you need to do more of that, right? Gosh, she's still not happy. Fuck. Okay. So I'm gonna do more. What else could I do? Because I'm a nice guy, I'm a good guy, I love her. I want her to be happy. I feel like a failure as a man if she's not. So you start doing more, you start falling into that role more, which is unnatural for a lot of us guys. It certainly was unnatural for me, but I fell into it more, right? A classic example. And every guy can relate to this because everybody does it, right? But oh, where do you want to go for dinner? Well, COVID's a little different, but I don't know. Where do you want to go? Well, I don't care. Where do you want to go? Well, I don't care, right? Those are examples of two betas, right? People, it's not decisive versus, hey babe, I want you to go ahead and put on a dress. I'm taking you out for a steak dinner at, Mastro's or wherever you're going to go. We're going to go there. I got reservations for us. Babysitter's going to be here any minute. So if you can be ready in the next hour or whatever it is, we'll be out the door. Right. That's a totally different experience for her as the woman and for you as the man when you take that ownership and that leadership role versus what do you want to do tonight? I don't know. What do you want to do tonight? Well, I don't know. And that plays off a lot, Tim, especially with COVID. It plays a lot we see it with guys talking about movies and shows they want to watch, because everybody's Netflix binging on some level during COVID or something similar. It could be Gaia for you guys that are a little bit more spiritually gifted. But that's what's happening for a lot of these guys, and they're falling into beta.
Mm. And I think for a lot of guys as well, I mean, it's kind of like what comes first, right? I think a lot of guys are so worried to rock the boat, so they have this, they don't want to have an opinion because they don't want to risk rocking the boat and being wrong, let's say. They don't want to risk leading and going to that restaurant and booking it and it not going well. And, when the relationship isn't in a great place anyway. But, the reality is, guys, a beta trait of really not having an opinion, just almost being this flaccid, empty guy, quite honestly. And, for some guys, who come to us, it's interesting because if you were to watch them in business, you would never guess that they'd be a beta at home. Right. But then some guys, they're walking through the door and they're just like, oh, God, I've been leading all day. I've been making decisions all day. Last thing I want to do is make a decision at home. I was actually speaking to a guy yesterday, in fact, and I was, sharing with him about the warning signs that are going on in his marriage because he's just not seeing them. One of them is that she's talking about separation, but she wouldn't do it. We just talk. She just mentioned it a few times. Shared with him how men and women are very different. Women often figure things out first. You get the gist. Second warning sign is the fact that she's been telling him that she's sick of taking the lead at home. Third warning sign is there's no intimacy. There's been no intimacy for about a year. Point being is he says, Tim, but I come home and I've just been hustling all day. I've got a couple of different businesses and I just need her to take care of everything at home. And so she's risen and become the alpha at home. If you were to imagine, as soon as you go into an environment like work, I bet you when you show up to work, you walk into the office like a trigger, boom, and you get into state. Kind of the same at home with your wife. If she's always leading at home, then you come back into her environment where she leads, and you're then asking her to lead by default. You might be leading at work, but you've been betarized to a degree at home. And for him, it's like, yeah, but I don't know if to invest in the program or just wait 4 months because I'm buying this property. I'm like, dude, chances are if you wait 4 months, you might end up getting divorced and having to give half the property away anyway. So, don't wait. But point being is you just didn't see it. You just didn't realize it. He thought that's what she wanted, right? He thought he was being a nice guy, but she doesn't want that. And now her mother-in-law's there as well, right now. And she's also saying they're questioning his every move now in business. And he's thinking about not doing the things he wants to do in business, which would obviously further fuel the fire, right?
For sure.
So yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into when you think you've been leading all day at work, you're tired, you come home, you just want to relax. But guys, just have an opinion. Even if it's ridiculous, even if it's wrong to start with, just risk having an opinion. Just risk, putting yourself out there and just start there, if anywhere.
Well, you said something that's really interesting here, and it rings true for most of the guys that we talk to. Is as men, we're going out there, we're crushing it in so many areas, right? We have 5 territories that we teach the powerful man. It's like 5 dimensions, if you could think of it that way, right? One is self, the other one's health, third is wealth, which doesn't just necessarily mean money, guys, relationships, and then business. So guys will go out there and they'll crush it in business. And like you said, you get decision fatigue. It's been studied. There's books about it. You get decision fatigue, and they assume then when I get home, my wife decides what's for dinner. My wife decides how the house is managed. My wife decides, and here's the big one, guys, how we manage the kids. Now, the guy might discipline, the guy might step in and say certain things, but she's making the decisions on the day-to-day, right? The minutia of the business, almost like the operations officer or, in some ways, a CEO of a company, of how that family is being run. And guys, was it abjugate? I'm not using the right word, but they basically give up their power at home.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'll go crush it at work. I'll bring in the money. I'll do all these other things. I'll even crush it in my health, right? Because I'm stepping up and I'll meditate. But they give away all their power in the house. Now, babe, you pick the colors of the curtains. You pick all of these things, which is fine to a certain degree. Where it crosses the line for me, Tim, especially, is, there needs to be compromise. Doesn't mean you have to lead everything and make every decision, guys. But when you give up all your power with your kids, right? You give up all the power in the house. You're too far gone. So when she sees that, to this guy's point, and the mother-in-law is a whole nother ballgame, but she's going to start questioning other things. You can't make decisions for the home, and or the decisions you're making aren't good because you're not making them. You're not getting your reps. You don't have the intel. Then how can I trust that you can do this out in the real world, right? How can the real world, right? Here I am, but outside of the home, how can I trust that? And that's when guys fall into it. And so the woman needs to get into an alpha state, right? And that's a masculine energy. So the guy's got one of 2 things happens, right? 2 masculine energies collide. One person has to go down a little bit and become more beta. or they're going to fight. There's no third option here, really. Or I guess two alphas could recognize each other, but no. So the guy becomes nice. The guy's either I'm going to crush her emotionally, verbally, physically, in some cases, which is the instinct, or I can't do that because you don't hit women, you treat your woman nice, she's my queen, all of that, which is all true, by the way, guys. And then he becomes a subject for her, right? He becomes a beta to her alpha, which then scares her more and makes her take on more of an alpha role,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's another side to this. There's another side to this, guys. So there's good news. If you take the alpha leadership role and you don't back down, I guess this is the third one, Tim. You stand in your power and you don't move, you're assured with who you are as a man, right? And this is what the activation method does. It activates you as the natural alpha man that you are. Now, some guys have different levels of alphas. It's true, but it activates you. It's why it's called the activation method. It activates the real man inside of you. When that happens and she tests you and you stand in the eye of that storm, she collapses into you. She trusts what you do. My wife trusts all the business decisions I make. Hey, babe, I'm spending 100K here, 100K there. Cool. Awesome. Right? There's no question about what I'm doing. Right? I share things with her. Not all the time, but I do. But there's no thoughts of where my investments are going with the family, what we're doing, what my thoughts on where we're going to live. All of those things, my wife fully trusts me. And it wasn't always this way, as everybody that's listened to this show knows. It wasn't like this. She questioned everything I was doing because I was playing the Mr. Nice Guy role. And I'm a nice guy. I'm naturally just a nice guy. I could be grumpy in the mornings, right? But when you're on the Pacific coast of the US, you're talking to guys in the UK. It's a big time difference. And so I get a little frustrated in the mornings with people who are slow. So not you, Tim, or anybody else on the team. But anyway.
Or anyone else in my life.
Or anybody else that might be listening to this. But the truth is, when you rise in the alpha and you stand in your power, you're able to absorb the eye of the storm and you kind of laugh it off, right? Because it doesn't bother you. It's like when my 3-year-old throws a tantrum, it doesn't bother me.
And that's the key, playfulness.
Yeah. And everybody, that's one of the keys, I think. I don't think every guy is, you and I are naturally jokesters, right?
Just in terms of distinction, right? If you're in this place of you found yourself just in the beta because you thought it was the right thing to do, swinging all the way over to the other side and coming home and starting to stand your ground and lead, works for some guys. But really and maybe it's just the way Amelia is, right? But what really lands for her and in the opposite of beta to a degree is being able to laugh things off, right? Laugh off the shit test, if you will. Laugh off the whatever it is that she's saying to try and see if I'm either going to agree or change my decision or, it's always test. It's kind of like it's boundaries, always testing the boundaries and how far she can go before, either gets a firmer reaction or whatever it is. But yeah, I think you raise a good point. I think the playfulness is a really important distinction of the opposite of what it is to be beta.
Yeah. And being in there. And I think the playfulness comes from the paradigm shift, which some of the stuff we teach in the activation method. Mm-hmm. But when you're able to really see what your wife is doing, you're actually able to see the game. It's kind of like being able to see the playing field, like a chessboard. You see 10 moves ahead of time. It becomes laughable, right? It becomes funny. Oh, that's cute. Oh, I see what she's doing. Oh, that's cute and funny. And it's like watching my daughter. My daughter's turning 1. I watch what she's doing. And she looks behind with this kind of like devilish grin because she's going to go touch an outlet, right? Because that's a big thing for kids. And she doesn't do it, but she looks at me to make sure, see how I'm looking, and then kind of goes over there. It's cute, right? It's no big deal. She's not really touching anything. She's not going to get hurt. It's sweet. But I look at my wife and some of the things she's doing that way too. She's testing me, right? But she's also being that little girl, that woman inside. And she's making sure her boundaries are known, right? She's making sure they're still there, just like kids test you. She's making sure that she's safe. If she falls, will I catch her? My wife knows unequivocally if she falls in her craziness, the things that are going on right now, right now she's going through a thing with COVID, right? It's distancing. She's like, I want to be with people. I'm calm. I catch her. She knows she can be in this feminine, wild storm. And when that happens and she knows that she's secure with me, not physically catch her, but emotionally catch her, and I can be there, that's when the fun stuff happens in the bedroom as well, guys. Right? Because now she can be wild and free, not only in her life, but behind closed doors, she can be even more wild and free.
Yeah. It's and look, I don't know. Maybe some guys are listening to this thinking, it sounds too good to be true. I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not.
I think
It's
guys naturally know this, Tim.
Yeah, maybe they do. I think if I was listening to this a few years ago, the reality is, guys, you're always going to be course correcting as well within this, right? Especially if, let's say, you are running a business and you come home and you are tired. You're going to have to remember, right? You're probably going to have a tendency to want to walk in through the door and you're going to be asked a question. And you're probably just going to want to say, whatever. Probably all you're thinking with some questions is whatever, just decide, But obviously you get to catch yourself. You can't be saying that. And sometimes you might say that, but catch yourself. It's not about being perfect with this, but you definitely get to be aware and constantly course correct. But, at the end of the day, if you're listening to podcasts like this and you're in the conversation of, being alpha versus beta, the chances are you're going to be in the right spot more often than not, which, this is where over time, as you do it consistently from the right place, and the playfulness piece, underneath that is confidence, right? It's self-assurance. That's why the playfulness then becomes sexy to the woman, because it's what it symbolizes. So point being is, as you continue to be in this conversation, doing the work, then you get the wildness that comes out. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes some consistency. Taken years for me, to be honest, but I'm still working at it. I'm still in the conversation because it's a dangerous place not to be. And that's one of the reasons why I love the community over, in workplace so much, where we're part of the guys who are going through the activation method, all the alumni, all the men in the brotherhood, because conversations like this come up often. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very, we've in some great conversations very often that always have me just check on myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to be in the conversation, and it does ebb and flow. And guys, I recommend the book "No More Mr. Nice Guy." I think it's a good book for guys to pick up. It's on Audible. It's a quick listen. If you recognize yourself in that, right? One of the things the author recommends is getting in with a group of men, right? Which but the activation method, and obviously, look, I think it's the best program to get there to activate you and get you moving, and then you can decide where you want to go from there. But the first thing to do is make that choice and make that decision. Where it gets cumbersome is, okay, crap. What do I do and how do I do this? And I think most men, Tim, recognize that when they were first dating their wife, asking around, hey, you want to go to the movies? That's a decision. That's an alpha invite. Hey, do you want to go to dinner? Boom. You didn't say, hey, would you kind of sort of want to go out with me and you pick the place because I don't care where we go or what we do or anything else because I don't know.
I'll show up tired, exhausted, looking like shit.
No, it doesn't happen, right? So you get to reclaim that as a man. And society has told us as guys that we have to be the nice guy, and that's bullshit. You can still be a great guy, a nice guy, a good man, and be an alpha. Right? I think you look historically through the leaders, politically, but also religious leaders, great and pious people, even Gandhi, very alpha, right? And when you look at those things, they made decisions, they led movements, they changed the world, right? And they weren't jerks doing it. So you don't have to go punch someone in the face, and go do a bunch, an obstacle course race. Although those are fun, I'm with it. This is a different state. It's a state of mind, a state of being, and your wife's waiting for you to jump into it.
I love what you said there about Gandhi and the other guys. Boundaries, right? They have something to stand for. Your wife, if you've gone into the beta, if you've been betaized, let's just call it that, you don't stand for anything. You're saying yes to everything, and you've just been this flaccid guy that's getting blown about in the wind like an empty carrier bag. There's nothing to stand for. There's nothing to respect. There's nothing to admire, right? When you think of these, Gandhi, let's say, who was alpha, he stood for something that meant he had a value system, that meant he had a boundary that he would not cross. The boundary is what gets the respect. If you don't have a boundary because you're saying yes to everything with your wife, by default, there's no respect. If you have the respect, you're not going to have that admiration. Yet you see where it goes with the intimacy and the desire. It's all part of the recipe.
Yeah, 100% agree. So, gentlemen, if you find yourself in this place, being a great guy, right? You're doing more things around the house, but you're not getting the reaction you want from your wife, from your spouse, right? You keep thinking, okay, how can I make her happy, do more? You're in the nice guy trap. That's okay. I do recommend that book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I recommend getting your ass into an activation method. I think that's a great way of doing it. Should say butt, right? Get your bottom into an activation method and make sure you guys are getting in there. Now, guys, if you listened to us before, what I always recommend or always request, make sure you go ahead and leave a rating, whether it be iTunes or wherever you're getting this, YouTube. Go ahead and give us a rating. Make sure you subscribe. And if this is your first time with us, go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus. That's thepowerfulman.com/bonus. You'll find the Reignite cheat sheet, which has got some alpha moves in there. The Reignite cheat sheet's on there, guys. And that's our free gift to you guys, just so you can get things started, right? Reignite and activate, right? Those are things that we like to get the guys started in their relationship, your sex life, and get your life going the path that you have. So, gentlemen, thank you again for being with us. That's a wrap, and we'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.